Well, where do I start? This is what a frog looks like when it's gravid, usually. Gravid, in this case, meaning pregnant with eggs. See how it's pretty subtle? Usually the only indicators of a gravid frog is a distended belly, or a bloated belly of some kind. The same goes for lizards as well. Okay, and this is what a gravid marsupial frog looks like. And yes, they are still gravid. Those are eggs with embryos on the inside. Also, fun fact, the process of embryos developing within an egg is called oogenesis. The thing is, the oogenesis of these frogs is actually not that dissimilar to that of normal frogs. It's just that they hatch on the inside of the frog rather than the outside of it, which would make this species ovoviviparous, not to be confused with oviparous, which means to hatch from eggs, or viviparous, which means to be live-birthed. But usually, with an ovoviviparous species, all that really means is an extra time, a little bit more extra time, I guess you could say, baking in the oven, if you know what I mean. Inside the egg, inside the mother. And then when they are given birth to, it's mostly just the egg hatching out of the mom, rather than the mammalian style of having a womb on the inside and that being the zone where the gestation takes place. But instead, this kind of ovoviviparity takes place within a pouch on the back of the mother, and a pretty big pouch too, all things considered. From the tip of their cloaca to right below their head, the opening of which can be opened and closed with the same amount of intention or ability as you can open and close your fist. The development of this pouch begins exactly 128 days after a female tadpole hatches. And yes, I do mean hatches. They aren't squeezed out as fully formed frogs like you might think, or like I thought. Like how Peepa toads, for instance, are similarly squeezed out of the mother Peepa toad's backside. Except with that, the eggs are laid under the skin rather than inside of a pouch. Although that is the case for some ovoviviparous frogs in the same family, who hatch out as toadlets rather than tadpoles. But in the case of marsupial frogs, it's tadpole time. But here's the thing. They're arboreal. These guys climb trees for a living. And I don't know about you, but I've never seen any lakes or streams on top of trees. So where are these tadpoles gonna go? They always say never judge a fish by how it climbs a tree, but in this case, we might just have to. Except we don't. There is water on the tops of trees in rainforests. Granted, it's not big bodies of water like lakes or rivers or even creeks for that matter. It's much smaller. It's more so in bromeliads, specifically the leaves of the bromeliads. Now, if you know anything about dart frogs, you would probably recognize that I think it's called the strawberry dart frog. The strawberry dart frog's eggs are laid inside the water in bromeliads as well, except that frog tends to have more maternal instincts. That is not necessary for the marsupial frog, and we'll get to that. In the rainforests that they're native to, it's humid and rainfall is very common, and if it doesn't bunch up on the forest floor, where does it go? Bromeliads. In fact, bromeliads evolved specifically with this in mind. That's how they gather all of the water from rainfall into their leaves. They get so full that little puddles form. And the marsupial frog must have noticed that, so they started laying their eggs right in there. It's a little water, but just enough for their tadpoles. But here's my question. How long can a bromeliad keep a puddle of water without the puddle of water evaporating? Or rather, without them drinking it, because bromeliads are pretty thirsty. To mention, the pools themselves are actually quite small. Well, here's the thing. When a female frog usually lays eggs in a pond or a puddle, it takes around 6 to 25 days for that egg to hatch. And I know that's quite a big range, but that's because we're averaging like all frog species. The lowest gestation time is 6 days, the highest gestation time is 25. Then after that period, it takes 14 to 16 weeks for that tadpole to turn into a juvenile frog. So that's what, a minimum of 94 days where a tadpole is like extremely vulnerable to the elements? What's the marsupial frog gonna do? 94 days spent inside of a bromeliad? Are they really gonna survive that with no food and water that's quickly evaporating? I mean, I guess that's why frogs usually lay like hundreds of eggs at a time. It's because not all of them are gonna survive. But hold on. The marsupial frog only fertilizes 9 to 19 eggs at a time. So how are they going to survive? Although marsupial frog gestation takes longer at around 80 days, don't forget that these 80 days are spent within a female marsupial frog's pouch on her back. But even with that, the tadpole's metamorphosis must still take several weeks. Do the bromeliads keep enough water in them for the full 14 to 16 weeks? I think the question you should instead be asking is, do the bromeliads keep enough water in them for 3 weeks? Only 3. The marsupial frog's tadpoles metamorphosize 5 times faster than that of the average frog. But is that still enough to guarantee safety during those 3 weeks? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for sure. Yeah, without a doubt. No, definitely. I mean, because, like, keep in mind that they live in Venezuela. Venezuela, where both the marsupial frog and the bromeliads are native to, rains 80.4 inches, or 2,044 millimeters per year, which of course makes it the 31st rainiest country in the world, which might not sound like much, but keep in mind that there's around 200 and something currently recognized countries. So yeah, I think the tadpoles are going to be just fine in the amount of water, because keep in mind that it keeps refilling every time it rains, and it rains often in the Venezuelan rainforests. And also, if you're curious on what the first rainiest, or I guess most rainy country in the world is, that would of course be Colombia. But you know who isn't the first rainiest country in the world? The marsupial frog. Not only because they are not technically a country, as far as I know. They are, however, also known as the Puerto Cabello tree frog, or in Spanish as Ranida marsupial pygmea, or their scientific name, Phlectonotus pygmaeus. Here's something. Anyone who's gone out trying to catch frogs as a kid knows that they pee on you a lot. And that pee specifically is pretty similar to mammalian pee, more so than reptiles, specifically in that it's mostly urea, not to be confused with urates, which are the white chalky pods that lizards tend to pee out to expel any excess nitrogen from their body. Urea is different. It's watery, but it's similar only in terms of it being how their bodies expel nitrogen. In frogs, when they drink water from rivers or creeks, or anywhere with dirty water, really, their livers convert the ammonia in the water that they swallow into urea and send it to the kidneys. And then the kidneys sort the urea from the blood and send out the urea in the form of urine. This process helps them sort the water from the ammonia and thereafter expel the ammonia from their bodies. But that's the case with adult frogs. What about with tadpole? Tadpoles can't do this, or rather they don't need to. Since they live in water, they don't really need to conserve hydration as much as adult frogs who are out on land need to. So instead, the tadpoles just pee out ammonia directly. So, okay, tadpoles pee, but what do they eat? Specifically, what do the marsupial frog tadpoles eat? Well, when they're in bromeliads all day, food's just not gonna be an option for them. I mean, it's not like there's fish that are swimming around inside the bromeliads, at least not usually, but that's okay because they don't actually need to eat at all. In fact, they don't eat at all. Although some studies looking at marsupial frogs did feed the tadpoles fish flakes, which is very funny and very cute, that's not actually something they needed to do. That same study noted that any tadpoles that were fed food didn't grow any faster than the tadpoles that didn't eat at all. In the wild, you're not going to find them eating anything. Well, at least not anything outside of their bodies, because they don't need to. I mean, look at them. They're born with a belly full of egg yolk. Who needs to eat anything else when your entire body is full of high-protein egg stuff? Maybe this is also why the beaks in marsupial frog tadpoles aren't developed enough for regular use. Now, hearing that, you might be thinking, beaks? Since when do frogs have beaks? Well, they don't have beaks. Well, they do. So, although they do have tiny beak-looking structures made of keratin, they are, as you can see, much less defined than that of a bird's. Usually the keratin bit only develops to strengthen the jaw, but also, usually tadpoles develop them pretty early in their gestation, or in their development, or in their oogenesis. If I had to theorize, and I do, then I would probably say that the reason why marsupial frog tadpoles don't really develop those same keratinous structures that most frogs do to the same strength and as early on is probably because they really don't need to eat. Like, usually the keratin is there to reinforce their jaws, but you don't really need to reinforce your jaw if you're not going to be eating anything. In terms of threats to their population, we're looking at the typical offenses of deforestation, invasive species, and chytridiomycosis. If you're not aware, chytridiomycosis is a fungal pathogen that affected the populations of a little over 200 species of amphibians. It was first discovered in 1880 and plateaued around 1940. To this day, it affects roughly 2% of amphibians in the wild and hasn't gotten any worse. Neither has it gotten any better. As far as marsupial frogs are concerned, it's not that much of a concern. Right now, their population is judged as least concern by the IUCN Red List. So, aside from the other potential spots of worry for this species, they seem to be doing all right. So here's to that. Otherwise, I think that'll be it from me for today. So, yeah. Shout out to the marsupial frog, and thank you to the IUCN Red List, and thank you to Venezuela, and thank you. Okay. Goodbye.